The enemies start by defining the Lingalind, a world surrounded by a wall that enshrouds the land, protecting it, nurturing and sustaining it. It's divided by two nations, one taking pride in intelligence, the supremacy of Luta, the other honoring valor above all, the Republic of Reka. One day, Reka's High Diviner has observed an omen, the sign of the Phoenix, and the predictions say that it's going to fall near the border of Luta. The General K got the information and he is now on the move to the site. When he arrives with his soldiers, they find bin warpers within the rock hall, but before loading them up, a bright hide from Luta's army appears and promises to take the possession of whatever there is in the rock. K used one of the bin warpers to summon a huge bright hide. Then he attacks the bright hides of the Luta and defeats them easily. Suddenly, another rock hole shows up in the sky, which is something strange since they only fall once a month, and this one fell in the abandoned land so no one got closer to it. Shubi feels upset because the sign he saw was something huge, and he decides to go investigate on his own. In the Iki territory, more precisely in Edger village, we see Elsha and Bit who are hunting the Hornhar, and we got to know Atli, a very talented woman. In the town, all the villagers are gathered and the chief is worried about the lake of food. Meanwhile, Shubi and Ren are on their way to discover the rock hall. Suddenly, the object breaks the sky and crashes into the village. People gathered around this weird object and they wonder if it is a raku. They start hoping it's full of food to feed the starving families. Shortly after, they start cooking it on fire. At the first sight, Shubi and his assistant thought it was a festival, but when the villagers start striking the raku, a man breaks out the door. Children jump to him and start biting, thinking it's food, while the other villagers are in shock of what they see. After a while, they all sit down trying to understand why this man has been sent to this village. He claims that he doesn't remember his name or the reason that brought him to the Edger village, but he reveals that he came from beyond the wall. The villagers start laughing, since they've been raised to believe that nothing exists beyond the wall, but the man insists to get back to his world. Then a strange man comes over and shows off his bright hide, intending to take the treasure of the raku, but the villagers surprise him by pointing at the naked man. The bright hides start destroying their village. The chief died and the duty of protecting the land was passed to Atli, his daughter. The girl rushes to her house and comes out with a bin warper that helps her to transform to a bright hide, but she gets defeated easily despite her amazing powers. Then the naked man runs toward the rock hole and discovers a bin warper inside. He employs it in order to protect Atli, who sacrificed her life to protect him and the other villagers. He creates an amazing blue bright hide and defeats the bandit easily without any big effort. So the fight ends by breaking his opponent's bin warper. Meanwhile, Shubi and his assistant are amazed by the huge power. Right after this fight, the naked man decides to call himself Back Arrow. After this, Back Arrow departs in his bright hide, aiming to reach the far wall. On his way, he meets Shubi and Ren. They feed him and talk to him in order to know more details about his origins. Later, the diviner asks Black Arrow to work for him if he wants to get to the wall, and somehow he got convinced. The couple delivers him back to Edger village, and they are for sure planning for something big. In the village, Elsha takes the new boy out for a walk and explains how the villagers are barely surviving. She tells him with tears in her eyes that Reka and Luto are in a huge war, so there is no other place to go to. The boy innocently suggests getting out of the wall to find food, but she tells him that death in the village is easy. Many factors can lead to death, and they can't afford another loss. She gives him one horned horse that she hunted in addition to water and dried deer horse, and politely asks him to leave because she doesn't want him to spread these crazy thoughts in the village. In the Raka Republic, Shubi managed getting the seal to enter the banned text archive in order to learn more about the man they discovered. Meanwhile, in the other part of the world, in the Lutos castle, the bandit tells about his losing battle that ended by breaking his bent warper. In the next day, the Lutos president ordered the president of the Iki territory to send his army and get the foreigner before the other republic arrives. After a while, the Iki territory's self-defense forces arrive at the village, and after knowing that the man they are looking for has left, their president orders them to erase the village because he doesn't want the Reka showing up like her opponent did, and a huge mess will be created if the two sides will gather up in his lands. The villagers try to run for their lives, and Atli used her bin warper to call upon Brighthide, but her opponent is way too powerful than she is. Somehow, Elsha discovers another bin warper in the rock hole, but she fails in using it. Surprisingly, Back Arrow comes out of a well, and he reveals that he promised Shubi to stay in this village no matter what happens. He summons his Brighthide and jumps to the battlefield. Back to Shubi, who managed reaching the banned text archive, and now he's about to open the most forbidden text about Raku. Elsha, who's registering as the startup system of the new Brighthide, and now she is allowed to use all the power that the machine has. Back to Shubi, who learns that once a newcomer reaches self-realization, the world will be destroyed, and this newcomer is Back Arrow. The village seems to collapse, but in fact, Elsha gained control on her Brighthide, and now it emerged from the ground while serving as the figurehead for the enormous flying battleship. On the other hand, Back Arrow successfully defeated his opponent and broke his Bin Warper. In the Republic of Freka, the Emperor orders his soldiers to wear the armbands they found in the first Raku, in order to prepare themselves for the war against the other Republic. But there's still something mysterious they don't know about the new arriver, a secret that might destroy the world. At night, and while Back Arrow is sleeping, Bit steals his Band Warper and the villagers are ready to give him to the Iki president in the morning, because his presence in their land causes destruction. After this, Atli surprised Bit after asking him to untie Arrow, because he saved the villagers and he's able to protect them in the next days, but Elsha stops her and Arrow decides to stay tied up. In the next morning, Elsha summons her Bright Hide and takes all the villagers on the huge ship to their new village, but Atli expresses her disappointment because she can't save the Back Arrow. In their new village, the president of Iki welcomes the Edger people and shows them the heaven they are going to live in, where all sorts of food exist. Surprisingly, Bit asks the president to join the army. However, right after getting the keys of the cage in which Back Warrior is arrested, the president orders his soldiers to fire cannons at Granitor to make sure the ship will not fall in the wrong hands. Bit is shocked after seeing his people getting killed, but he gets the nerve to steal Arrow's Bin Warper and he throws it to him. The boy in the cage summons his Bright Hide to save the ship before it's too late. One of the president's servants plays his armband and attacks the ship, but Atli teaches him a lesson he will never forget. Then the Edger people threaten the president to never bother the villagers again, but he begs them to leave the country in order to avoid attacks from the other republics. And by this, for the first time, the villagers abandon their country and start a new journey to find a place they want to live in. Meanwhile, in the Republic of Freka, Shubi declares he wants to eliminate Arrow. 15 years ago, in the Republic of Freka, in a small village, we see many kids being treated like livestock by some soldiers. Among these children, there is the General K and the great diviner Shubi. It turns out later that the village couldn't pay taxes, so it offers them as slaves instead of food or money. And behind the bars, they plan to become nobles and prove themselves to catch the eye of the capital. Back to now, the Four Friends mercenary force breaches a little border outpost in the neutral zone in order to get the dreadnought like Shu ordered them to do. In the huge ship, the Doctor advised the group to follow a road between Rekka and Ludo that is used by a caravan of Mortian who can come and go freely. As they are still discussing their plan, Bit informs them that the soldier of Freka arrived. Ren sends a letter sent by the Republic of Freka's emperor saying the wall is the world, and they can't allow anyone to think of going beyond it because it destroys the order of the Lingalind. And for this reason, he has sent his warriors to eliminate the ship and the people on it. The war officially gets started. The four friends summon their Bright Hide and join the other soldiers following the orders of Shu. On the other side, Arrow and Atli summon their Bright Hide to fight while Asha tries to move the Grandor and flee to Bendokia, a neutral caravan city to the northwest. But the four friends deploy a decouple spray and stop the huge ship. After this, Arrow and Atli get to know the real attention of Shubi, and the four friends introduce themselves as a strong separate mercenary unit, being for hire, and their mission is to eliminate Arrow. The battle gets started, and Asha joins her friend for help. Surprisingly, Arrow splits his Bright Hide into 4 identical copies, and easily destroys the enemies, transforming them back into humans. Shubi is amazed by seeing this huge power, so he disables all the Rekka army's weapons, and announces his surrender to the Edger village. Ren rushes back to the Republic of Freka to report the High Diviner's betrayal, while Shu explains to the Edger group the mechanism of their ship. Ren shocks Kay by the news of Shu's betrayal. In a flashback of about 10 years ago, the two friends Shu and Kay were working as a slave for the Republic of Freka. However, Shu was so smart and he could calculate the location of a new Raku. The two friends had to defeat a group of rebel forces to win the Emperor of Freka's respect. Back to now, Kay took the permission from the Emperor to go solve this matter on his own. He managed stopping the huge ship by throwing away Alsha. Then he started questioning his friend to know why he's abandoned the Republic. Back Arrow used his Bright Hide to start a brutal fight against Kay. In this time, the boy multiplies, but his opponent is way too stronger to be defeated that way. Shu claims he's the only one who can defeat his friend Kay, so he orders Arrow and the two girls to step back while he speaks with him. A few minutes later, the talk has reached a high level of anger and stress, so the diviner orders the Doctor in the ship to launch a particle cannon from the Granitor, directing it to the capital of Freka. That is the only way to make Kay return to his republic and leave them alone, but he promises to come back and he will not have mercy against Shu or anyone from the Edger village. After this, Shu explains to his new friend that the cannons they fired were only blanks, and the explosions in the capital were charges he placed in the castle. So now they have to move toward the north wall before the trick is discovered. In the capital, the Emperor prohibited Kay from any mission since he failed to execute Cho, and he asked him to discipline himself. But the general is planning for a bigger revenge with Ren. A friendship ends and another one begins. A new journey is about to begin in other episodes. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you next time.